how do we get to a world where we're going to be wearing virtual reality goggles?
Well, oh boy. So you got to go back pretty long ways. So I just looked at something. It's like in the 1930s, there were science fiction stories that predicted this sort of thing, where it's like, oh, you'd be wearing this. They didn't call it virtual reality at that time or anything like that. They just said, glasses, and you'll be able to see off into other places and blah blah blah. And even in the 50s, we had technologies like Dick Tracy, wristwatch where you could come in, chief, and now we got it. So, so like all good things, it started with some science fiction back in the 30s. But of course, the technology at that time wasn't. We didn't even have television, let alone little tiny TV fit around your eyeball. So, the science fiction was written, that sparked people, excitement. And then you roll up through the 50s, the 60s, they might have actually had head mounted displays, something where you were staring off into probably some regular TV tube sort of thing with some magnifying glass on your face or something, standing in one place. And there was probably a big room full of stuff to support that. But technology comes along. And then I remember myself back in the 80s or early 90s not playing with goggles, but hearing about things. And then I looked it up specifically, 1987, a friend of mine, Jared Lanier, and other people created a company called VPL, which was the first commercial company to create this head-mounted display and call it virtual reality. So 1985, they were founded. 87, they came out with a thing. But at that time, again, the technology wasn't there. It wasn't commercially viable, way too expensive, too big, heavy, blah, blah, blah. But the speed, again, was pushed further along. And then just in the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 years, we had several tries at this. We come time and again to virtual reality. Hey, everyone, you're going to live in your goggles. It just keeps happening and it's periodic. It was just kind of like artificial intelligence. It keeps happening. We draw back. It happens again. Google came out with a thing called Google Glass. If you ever remember that, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, where like glasses with the recorder, a camera on it. And everyone kind of went, ew, you're recording me. That's icky, you stalker. So they kind of backed off and nothing really happened. And then Oculus came out with something. The company now is Meta, came out with Meta Quest, which was the goggles that I actually purchased, 2 or 3 years ago during COVID. Microsoft had a thing called HoloLens. So we're getting closer and closer. And then finally, here comes Apple. Like, all right, now we're really going to do this. So it's just the long history of science fiction in the 30s all the way up to technology actually being affordable. Now, this headset is $3,500. That's not affordable to the average consumer. Version 1, this is for developers. By the time it gets down to the consumer prices, $1,200, $800, $500, this will be smaller, lighter, more powerful. It's technology. It's going to march along. So pretty soon it will be like this, maybe a couple more attachments, maybe a little thicker in the frame, but it's going to be this, and it's going to be $500, and it's going to be pretty much as capable as this is, right? There's just a long history of people really pushing the idea.
How many years do you think that's going to take?
To get the glasses? Well, Meta with Ray-Ban already has glasses that will show you virtual screen, right? So you can just put these on and watch a movie. It's as good as that. And they're just Ray-Bans with thicker rims and tethers to your phone. Say, okay, fine. And why it's such a short amount of time, it's because everyone has a phone. Well, this is a supercomputer in your pocket. So you can look at the display part of it. Now, this Apple Vision Pro is kind of its own computer. But if you don't go all the way there, You just say, I just need a display that's on my face. Well, all the compute is here. So you need a fast connection from your phone to the display. We have that. We have both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. They're both fast enough now that you can send full 4K video to a remote stream. You know this because you can sit at home and use your Android phone and display a YouTube video on your television. That's either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. So the connectivity is fast enough such that you can send the signal because you're already doing it to your TV. So all you have to worry about is how do you get that display technology shrinky-dink down to your glasses? Well, again, the phone, bless the phone is already doing it. You've got super display technologies in the phone. You have OLED, now we have micro LED. It's just getting smaller and smaller. What Apple helped do and what Meta helps do is they keep driving that further and further, such that in that little tiny display, each one of these little tiny displays is a 4K video display. Each one of them. And there's 2 of them, right? So you've got video displays that are that big that are 4K. Well, there you go. But it's not the technology. We've got it, right? Now you just have to work on cost, reducing the cost. Well, that's a volume game. And that's why having Apple in the market is great, because they're the world's biggest consumer electronics company. They're going to drive the cost down because they're going to try to push it on the high end. Meta's already doing it with their Quest. They sell millions of those things. Having Apple in the market is just going to put more pressure on the price down, down, down. The displays are supplied by Samsung, Sony, whoever. So those prices are going to reduce and they're going to end up on your glasses. And it's not 10 years from now, 2, 3, 4 years from now. It's 2 or 3 iterations of the Apple Vision Pro, or it's 2 or 3 more iterations of already Quest or the Ray-Ban glasses. It's just 2 or 3 more iterations. Within 5 years, easily, this is going to be common, right? At least glasses. Maybe not the goggles because you look dorky walking around with goggles, but the goggles will have their place too because it's a much more immersive environment. Maybe it's commercial, maybe it's in a factory setting, maybe it's, it's in a more fixed thing. But walking around the streets, you're going to be wearing something like thick Ray-Bans, and you're going to be interacting with visual stuff with your hand, and you'll look as dorky as when we first got cell phones and we're talking in the air because we had your pod, right? We'll get there and it'll be less than 5 years.
So William, what's the application here? What's the takeaway? What is going to be the future of tech? What's your thought?
Yeah, so it's one, as some people have fantasized ever since the 30s, of course, of all sorts of applications of this sort of stuff. Heads-up displays or have military applications, obviously, pilots use already. They have goggles where they can just turn their head and aim their gun and, do whatever to fly the plane. There's things like that in military sorts of applications. For practical things, like just imagine repair, okay? And you want to look at your car and you're going to change the oil. So you run the change the oil app, you look at your car, it shows the oil filter is here. Use this tool, pick up this tool, and put it on here and change the oil, right? But anything like that where it's instructional, this will easily make it easier. I was within the goggles now, there's some demo app. One is where you can, in F1 car, and you can expand it out to whatever size you want, and you can pick parts up and look at them. You can look inside the engine. Another one is showing a turbojet. So the jet's spinning and you can look at how the fans are and see the air flowing through it. Anything that's instructive, this is just an enhancement. You can think of doctors teaching in an anatomy class. Put a real looking cadaver on there. You don't need a real dead person. You can just put a virtual cadaver there and you can go picking things apart and labeling it. Just all sorts of things like that. If you want to see the night sky, there's an app that's already on there and you live in the city, put the goggles on, look up, and
That's
you'll
awesome.
see the actual cars. And then a big one is going to be, especially for the goggles, where you're probably sitting down somewhere, entertainment, of course. So yes, certainly movies, that's going to be turned into group thing. Right now, when I watch a movie, it's just me, right? Soon enough, I'm sure they'll say, hey, you and 10 friends watching a movie
Yeah.
at the same time,
Yep.
sitting in the virtual
Much
movie
fun.
theater, right?
Yep.
The Quest already does this sort of thing. Entertainment, and that's going to go all sorts of ways like, hey, subscription, you can subscribe to SpaceX launch TV and ride on a rocket as we launch
Yeah.
to the International Space Station.
Yeah.
You can get on a Mars rover and rove around on Mars in real time. And there are new categories. It's not just, oh, let me see the movie in 3D. It's like, no, let me see an experience I've never had before in immersive spatial video, not just 3D where a rock flies on you every once in a while. It's like, no, you can look around. An easy one, I just looked at some app where they had set up a virtual museum where they had, I think it was Van Gogh and Michelangelo's famous painting, on the wall. And you can walk up to them, look at it, inspect it, read the little placard that says what it is and get more information, stuff like that. And the room itself was laid out as a museum room, a big floor, and things are on the wall and you can go up to them. So just imagine you're going to do that for children. Let's imagine they all have the goggle, and they're going to go on a field trip to the Louvre, right, in France. Well, there's no way they could do that normally. But you put on the goggles and you get the real experience of a 3D walkthrough of the actual Louvre, So there's all sorts of places you can go. So you're kind of not eliminating things, but you're shrinking things.
Shrinking, right. You're bringing things
right
together.
Yeah, you're like, oh, you can go anywhere. It's like, hey, kids, we're going to go on a field trip to Mount Everest.
Yeah.
We're going to climb Everest today and we're going to see what it looks like. So it's not just watch the produced movie of Everest. It's like, oh, we can walk ourselves in 3D going up the mountain. Right. And see the snowstorms coming in and all that sort of stuff. So I think the experiential stuff is just going to get more intense.
Right.
Throw in there some artificial intelligence and some other advances in 3D modeling and whatnot. And you're going to have interactive experiences that it's going to be hard to distinguish from reality, actually. Right. Because the resolution of the video is so fine that your eye can only distinguish so much. You won't be able to see the difference between the pixels, which means if that rendering is as true to life as possible, shading and shadows and texture and all that, you're going to feel like you're really there. Minus the change in the wind or the smells not being there or whatever. And that's just an experiential different thing. Certainly in inspection work where you're trying to teach something, certainly virtual locations like museums, learning things like cadavers, anything that's visually where you're trying to present something without having to physically be there or have the physical thing, that's all going to be available to you. And then there's going to be a whole raft of new things that we just haven't even thought about. So control based on the things like eye tracking and whatnot. It's like, I don't use the mouse anymore. I can use my voice. I can use my hand. I can use my eyes. I don't even have to talk. I can just look at things and click and not have to be standing like an idiot in an airport going, blah, blah, blah. No, you just have to look. Maybe double blink to open something up. And on top of all that, you're now enabling a whole new set of accessibility options.
Right.
So people who right now have to use maybe a mouse stick to poke at a keyboard, the eye tracking is going to become better and better. They'll be able to type with their eyes faster than we can type with our fingers. They'll be able to enable things, push buttons and whatnot, just by looking, maybe tapping, maybe blinking. So you're opening up more modes of interaction that we don't currently use because you're using more of your body.
Right.
Right now, you're just in your hands, mouse, keyboard, mouse, keyboard, mouse, keyboard. Nobody wants to talk to the computer. Hey, Siri, you know, it's cumbersome to do that. But hands, fingers, eyes, that's easy. That's where it's all going. We're just going to open up whole new possibilities of input, output, visual interactions at a distance, everything. One thing I do want to mention here is that Apple's not the only one who's doing this. I've mentioned Meta several times, formerly Facebook. They have the Quest 3, so the third generation of their VR goggle. They just call them VR goggles. They have a huge amount of software already available. A lot of the stuff that people are excited about doing in the Apple Vision Pro can already do it with the Quest. But it's a different ecosystem. The difference between Facebook and Apple is Facebook, they got a bunch of games and they've come to the market of 3D visual games. Okay, fine. No one's going to use that in an industrial. Now, Apple's the biggest company on the planet. And in consumer electronics, they have the pool to really make this stuff advance much better than Facebook. Facebook is an advertising company. They're an ad broker. They're interested in selling your eyeball. Apple is interested in selling you the device. So they're going to spend a lot more time and money and effort on the device and advancing the device. Not just making it good enough for gaming so I can ads, but making it good enough so that I can send you to the moon and you're going to feel like running. So that's the difference having Apple in the game. It's like, oh, the world's biggest company is now in the game. Okay, it's on. You're in the Apple ecosystem. So when I put on these goggles, I tell it my account, my Apple ID, and it says, oh, okay, here's your email, here's your Teams thing, here's your this thing. It ties it all together because it knows who I am. So all my Apple stuff's there. When I want to look at my MacBook and bring it up in the environment as a virtual desktop, all I do is look at my laptop and it instantly pops up a little thing that says, connect. And I say, yeah, I click my fingers to say yes. And now my laptop screen is in my environment. In beautiful 4K that I can expand as big as I want. It's just integrated, right? So yeah, the Apple ecosystem, and the apps will come eventually. I mean, there's a lot of pundits right now. They don't have the apps. They don't have this. Blah blah blah. It's common. They said the same thing about the iPhone, and look what happened.